Yep. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. We are back here again today with Ramadan for Realtors, learning how to balance work and worship. And today, our special guest is a longtime friend of mine, Shomail Malik, with Apex Capital Group. Um, Shomail, just to get right into it, why don't you kind of give us, introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do? What's Apex Capital Group all about? This is your time to shine.
Sure. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, Sammy, thanks for putting this on. I think these type of podcasts and shows and so on are important to highlight different folks in the community and the work that they're doing. As you know, we had an event with you a couple of weeks ago, and it's important. And now, specifically going into this topic of Ramadan and working professionals, we'll get into that. But by way of introduction, so I live in Central Jersey. I'm right by the Princeton, New Jersey area. I'm in Franklin Park, married with 3 kids. I went to school here, Rutgers, um, to study to be a doctor, like most Pakistanis and Indians and Bangladeshi people, and went in a completely different path into entrepreneurship. I actually had a company. I had a distributorship for an internet company back when it was dial-up service. This probably predates so many people at this point, but we were selling to small and mid-sized businesses, and this I was doing as a junior in college. One of the guys that I bumped into, Sufyan Abbasi, was the son of Muhammad Abbasi at Rutgers, and he said, "Look, my dad has been killing it in real estate. He bought Keller Williams franchising rights. You got to take your real estate license and join me." So that's how I got my brother interested in it. My initial thing was I had seen a movie called Boiler Room
Okay.
back in the day, and we were going to be stockbrokers. I like the New York long trench coat look, and the kind of the flashiness of it a little bit. This is obviously my college days, and then so we
Wait, I
actually
gotta stop you there. Did The Wolf of Wall Street come out by then yet? Or
no, it wasn't a thing at that point, but Boiler Room was like my kind of my introduction into
okay.
that whole thing, and kind of shortcutting the conventional path of going to school, getting a degree, working hard, moving up the corporate ladder. As a matter of fact, I was going to go, I had just purchased my MCAT book.
Mhm.
Remember, paid $65 for that thing, and I never cracked it open. I went and had a conversation with my dad junior year when I had started in this company. Um, and I was making like really good money. My dad was a chemist for Wyeth at the time, and I was making more than him in
Oh, wow.
college. And and so when that happened, I was like, it's got to be business. I got to go into business somehow,
Yeah.
some way, and that's how I got the bug. And they were big on personal development and leadership, and so I got introduced obviously to the Purple Book at that time, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I wasn't even in the proximity of real estate. This was more along the lines of sales, but also recruiting, the way that like Avon and Herbalife and some of these multi-level marketing companies do, like Amway and stuff. So it had that component of it too. EXP obviously has a recruiting
Yeah.
component. Keller Williams has a recruiting component. So I mean that industry kind of gets a bad rap. But that's what we were doing, and I had about 250 downlines
Wow.
at Rutgers, and getting kids to sign up for $420 to start their business and then go out and sell this internet product, which internet at that time was slow, excruciating, and just if somebody picked up the phone, you got cut off, and that's what we were. But
Yeah.
we were selling this to small and mid-sized businesses, right? So anyway, fast forward, I came out of school. Actually, that company shut down, and it was like you rose fast and you crashed fast. And I was like, at this point, I made the decision I'm not going to med school. Um, so I was coming out with a neuroscience and economics degree, which is very like schizophrenic. They're on like two ends of the spectrum. One is hard science, the other one's very liberal arts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do economists do? Like, it sounds boring. All my classes have been boring so far. And you know what? There is a brother, Sharif Shaban. I love him to death. He came to the MSA and he had graduated like top of his class, and he was working for a pharmaceutical company. And he's like, look, you've got this business sort of background where you were selling stuff. You've got a good understanding of hard sciences. Why don't you go into pharmaceutical sales? It's a great job. They start off at like 70,000 out of college. I was looking at like, like the reason I wanted to bypass med school was because 4 years of more schooling, taking on a lot of debt. I don't think my dad could afford med school at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and so taking on debt to go to med school, even though like I was on a full scholarship at Rutgers, so that was paid for. Alhamdulillah, that came out of pocket. I remember one semester I paid like $11 for my
Well,
tuition
yeah.
because most of it was covered by scholarships and whatnot. But med school was going to be a different story. And then 3 years of residency, and then in my mid 30s start to actually like make money, like real money, right? So I'm like, I don't want to do that. And you after watching Boiler Room and getting some of these things, Sharif said, look, go into pharmaceutical sales. You come out, you make like 70, 80 your first year out of college. And I saw that when you look at what do people make coming out of college, chemical engineer looked like the top field at that time. And it
Yeah.
was like $51,000, right? So I was like, okay, this is kind of like poo poo money. I
Yeah.
want to, how do I like accelerate and
Yeah.
and do something? So coming out of college, I knew that look, I'm single right now, and I am gonna have all the disposable time after I get home at like 5 o'clock. What am I gonna do after that? I need to have a side hustle as well. So this is where real estate comes back into the picture. So when I graduated, went into pharmaceutical sales, like climbed the ladder, and then after my first year, I was working with Procter and Gamble, Fortune 500 company. As a matter of fact, I think it's a Fortune 100 company, and they had a pharmaceutical division that they had started. And I'm telling you, like cushy job. They give
Yeah.
you a company car, they give you
Wow.
an Amex, corporate account. So I'm eating at five-star restaurants. Of course, I'm finding all the nice halal restaurants at that time. I
Yeah.
wish it
Yeah.
was like today, where you have all of these options and you can go on Jersey halal spots and be like, "Hey, what's the next restaurant that opened up?" But back in those days, I had my territory was in Long Island, and then I couldn't take Long Island, so I shifted to New Jersey, back to New Jersey, and yeah, so just basically eating lobsters like 4 times a week, and doing these like expensive dinners with cardiologists and so on and so forth. So um, that was an interesting time. I moved up the ladder very, very quickly, alhamdulillah. And it's because I was hustling. Like I had this hustle work ethic from before. Um, and then one doctor approached me. She was an OBGYN in Newark. And she said, "Oh, my husband and I, we have this internet business, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, sounds familiar. She was clearly recruiting me into something. I went to a presentation. They were drawing the circles, which I was familiar with from my college days. So I'm like, okay, I'm being recruited into another network marketing, multi level marketing type of a thing. And she was like an important doctor for me. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to sign up for this thing and like not show up to meetings and stuff. Then I started getting calls from her husband, like, "Hey, we're having a meeting. You should come." And it was more like, "Hey, you got to buy these
Yeah.
products and you got to push these
It's
products."
crazy how you wouldn't imagine like a professional like a doctor to be involved in something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. But you know what? A lot of doctors do have like, you ever go to a barber shop
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the barber doesn't just cut the hair. He's got like gel and stuff that he's selling.
sure.
Then he's got
Yeah,
like a vending machine over here. He's got like other ancillary revenues. I mean,
yeah,
they're small, but doctors do kind of the same thing. They've got like other procedures that they could do that's kind of like off the books. They've got I wouldn't say off the books, but cash paying procedures. They'll sell you vitamins, some of them that they've created
yeah.
themselves, and of course those will sell because they've got the MD behind
Mhm.
their name. So they've researched it, and then there's pushing a product on you. So she was selling vitamins and herbals and all these type of things that were made by Nutrilite, a company that was aligned with Quickstar Amway. right? So I joined, and then I started going to these events again, and everything is like pump you up, rah rah rah, and stuff like that. Mind you, I had a real estate license from Keller Williams, and at those days, exit realty became the big thing. It became like,
Mm.
oh, we're going to take Keller Williams down, right? And exit started opening up. And exit is more like a uni level marketing,
Yeah.
right? And I think they pay 10% of the commissions or whatever. And so my brother joined exit, and we kind of like always did things in tandem. So like I wanted to be a stockbroker, so he's like, I want to be a stockbroker, and then he comes along, right? And then I went into real estate. He's like, I want to do real estate, so we got our license together. Um, I failed the real estate exam once because I didn't take it seriously. I thought it was just going to be a piece of cake. As a matter of fact, we show up to the classes, and we were like up till 2, 3 a.m. The classes were at 9 in the morning, and we went to Kovats in Maywood, New Jersey. Kovats is the guy that wrote the book, Frank Kovats,
Oh
right?
wow.
Yeah, the actual 70-hour. So we're learning from him, and we would just sleep in class. Like literally, our heads would be down, and we would sign in, and he'd give us the credit for the 6 hours for attending. Sometimes Farhan would just sleep in the car in the parking lot, and then he'd come in, sign in, and then he'd go back out and sleep. So anyway, he failed that exam 6 times for not taking it seriously, and then he eventually passed. Anyway, long story short, we went in different paths. My brother and I went into this pharmaceutical sales thing, and uh, real estate came back into my life when Farhan was like 23, and he did this $120,000 deal in New Brunswick. Um, he bought it as a short sale. He actually did the short sale. And though, like in those days, you had to kind of like get everything from the seller, get sit with them, do the hardship letter, the whole financial package and everything, submitted it to the bank. It's a 6 month process. Anyway, he bought the property and then he flipped it to this accountant, made $120,000, and then he didn't work the rest of the year. He was 23 years old, and obviously, you show up with a check that's 6 figures, and you deposit that. The teller's looking at you like, "Are you selling drugs? What's going on here?" Um, and I looked at it from almost like, I'm going to work 50 weeks of this year. I get 2 weeks vacation. And as cushy as my job is and all of that, and the benefits and the health insurance and all of those things, I'm not going to make that. I'm going to make 50,000 less than that, because he's my little brother. So I'm
Yeah.
comparing, obviously, right? We always have this like sibling, healthy competition rivalry. And so when I saw that, I'm like, all right, as much as I have to like suck up my ego, I got to tell him, like, teach me this stuff. Right. So that was like 2008. I sucked up my ego and said, all right, I'm going to start Strategic Realty. He was Executive Realty Solutions. I became Strategic Realty Solutions. And our main acquisition strategy was, we would take door notes, right? That said, I want to buy your house. I would
Mm.
put my wife's name, Asia, on it, and it would just have a big smiley face. And we would put that on any.
Why your wife's name?
Psychologically, people answer more to a female's name
Okay,
than
got it.
a male's name. And we learned that in a class. Uh, so I'm like, all right, I'll use, at one time it was Kim, then it was Nicole. I was like, I'm just gonna keep it authentic and just go with Asia. Maybe they'll be like, oh, this is an exotic name, and whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, you're split testing all of those things too. And it was easy. You would go to njlistpendants.com. You would extract all the properties that were pre-foreclosure. That's what listpendants.com gives you. And we would go tag those houses up with these notes, right? My first deal that I did was in Somerville, New Jersey on North Adamsville Road. I drove up to the house. It was the next one that I was going to tag. I had like 40 houses. I remember Somerville was always like 40 houses would be in pre-foreclosure out of all of the houses, right? And easy, the streets are really like nice and easy to drive through, kind of like a Willingboro, like up and down, up and down.
Yeah, yeah.
So I pulled up. I see the couple leaving the house, 47 North Adamsville. You'll never forget your first one. Um, and they leave the house. I quickly got out of my car. I put the note on the door, and then I got back in the car. And I went driving, and then I had to go through that street again to get to another street, and I see the couple coming back. And I actually saw them pull the note off and like freeze reading the note, right? And what happened was, like most people in 2009, was that they had fallen behind on their payments because they were in over their heads with the house that they bought. They have a very high valuation that the bank appraised the property at,
Hmm.
and they pretty much got like a 0% ninja loan, probably, right?
Yeah.
And so help them with the letter, the whole short sale package. We submitted that to the bank. Anyway, we got an approval on it like 9 months down the road. It took 9 months to
Wow.
do this deal.
Yeah.
But you don't wait for that deal. You continue marketing and you're finding other
Sure.
deals. And what happens is like the eighth deal that you got ends up being your third closing, right? So you just keep
Hmm.
building your pipeline. Anyway, and that's like key in real estate is you never take your foot off the gas when it comes to marketing, right?
Exactly.
That's the
Yep.
oxygen and lifeblood of your business. So flip that property for $16,000 to a cash buyer. So we brought money to the table, we closed on it, and then he closed on it. And Farhan and I were, for him teaching me, it was like a 50-50 arrangement. So he'd get 8 and I got 8. And the arrangement was that that will exist for like the first 3 deals. And then you're like off to the races, you're on your own. And what we did in those early days was we split up New Jersey like a pizza pie. So like, all right, you got Middlesex, I got Somerset, you get Union, but I get Essex. And that's how we did it. And bandit signs, anything else, like I shouldn't see yours in my territory and you shouldn't see mine in your territory, and so
Hmm.
on and so forth, right? And that got like kind of confusing because sometimes you get deals organically from somebody else.
Yeah.
So like he got a deal right in Somerset. Somerset was my backyard. And I'm like, oh, that could have been mine. And that was like a rehab that he did. So we're like, all right, this doesn't make sense. Let's open it up. All of New Jersey is fair game, right? And it was also weird because we're like 2 brothers, but we're like kind
Yeah.
of competing with 2 separate companies, right? And we did that for several years, and we were both doing good in our own niches. So he was, we both got heavy into rehab, fix and flip. Um, for myself, because I'm like, I give khutbas and things like that. I'm very like involved in the community. Um, it's a two-way sword, right? It's a double-edged sword. So you have instant credibility because of that. But if you ever screw anybody, they'll run you out of town, right?
Yeah.
And so August of 2012, at this point, I had done several flips and I was doing it along with my 9 to 5 job. So had a good, comfy, cushy job. And I'm doing really well with this whole side real estate flipping business. 4 to 5 deals a year, but these deals were like meaty. They're like 40K,
Hmm.
50K, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And so, um, and when you're in your like late 20s, that you're like, okay, I'm good, I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah.
So those were done with primarily my own capital that I was earning in my job, and also, if I had most of my capital tied up in a deal, then my dad or my chacha or mamu would like jump into the deal, and we would do properties and flip them. So then what happened was, uh, eventually him and we talked in 2016 and said, why don't we combine the companies and just make one company? He had a really cool niche that he was doing. He was buying HOA liens,
Hmm.
and these are junior HOAs can foreclose on properties, right, and take over the property, and he would buy it. But the problem is they're a junior lien, so the mortgage is the primary lien. So the mortgage will eventually foreclose on the property, right? So he would buy the HOA lien and he would have then control over the property. And so what that means is if it was rented, he's getting the money in receivership. So he's like taking over 3,200 square foot houses that are like $600,000. And there's a tenant living there paying $3,000 a month. Um, and he took it over for like $5,000 because he paid off the HOA
Hmm.
lien, right? And he
Yeah.
was he was the lien holder at this point. So I was like, "Whoa, how'd you figure that out? That's crazy." And he showed me like some of the tools that he had done, and then I showed him what I was doing with like what I called wholesaling on steroids, which
Hmm.
was okay. We're not going to sell to rehabbers that fix and flip properties or landlords. What we're going to do is sell to everybody else. So we're going to be like almost like a financial advisory firm. And this is kind of like when you and I met,
Yeah.
where we were like, hey, you're a doctor, you're a corporate professional, you have money to park it in real estate. What we'll do is we'll find the property for you, fix it up, lease it, and then we have a back end property management company that'll rent it out for you and should be smooth, right? From A to Z. And it's all managed. It's like investing in stocks, but except it's in real estate. So you don't have to go through the roller coaster ride of the stock market. So that took off and did really well. And then in 2000, what was it? 2017, we did some restructuring. Um, and we continue to do this model of what we call turnkey income properties. And COVID hit in 2000. So we continued on that path, fixing and flipping. Oh, this is what happened. August of 2019, the yield curve inverted. And I'm sorry, I know this is a little bit long-winded introduction. I'm just giving you like the whole timeline.
Yeah.
The yield curve inverted. I'm like, you know what, Fine. I don't know if it makes sense to keep doing rehab fix and flips. They're not scalable. We were doing 40 at that time between
Hmm.
Baltimore, Ohio,
Wow.
and New Jersey, 40 rehabs. And so that's a lot of money on the streets of other
Yep.
people, right? Because we're big on raising private money. That's a lot of people to answer to. So now it's like you have a boss. Um, and we were like just rethinking the whole business. And we're like, you know what? I don't know if I want to have a boss, like an investor, constantly asking for updates and so on and so forth. Like I just want
Exactly.
to be
Yeah.
left alone, like in my house, in my pajamas, and be able to see if I could run a business out of there, right? So interestingly, COVID hits. Um, and I started seeing a lot of stuff about virtual wholesaling. I took a bunch of courses as well and saw that the whole wholesaling space, while we were doing these other businesses, had changed
Hmm.
since the early days, right? So bandit signs and stuff like that, that's like a horse and buggy. Now, what you do is you buy data, you skip trace it in masses, like, 10,000 records at a time. You send out ringless voicemail, you send out SMS blast, text messages. You do cold calling and all of these things, and you get people on the phone and you get them to sell you their properties off market. And we stumbled on that right when COVID started. And there was a deal in Pemberton, New Jersey, in Browns Mills, and this thing was like a piece of garbage. This house, it didn't even have a proper foundation. It was sitting on cinder blocks, and what happened was we turned that into a $9,000 wholesale fee. Um, and that was it. That's when we knew, like, whoa, this thing has some legs. And how that we ended up doing seven figures in wholesaling. And I don't mean revenues, I mean like
Hmm.
net
Wow.
wholesale profits.
Inshallah.
Um, and it proved itself. And so that's how we started building out our office in Pakistan and Philippines with virtual assistants and all that. And that's kind of the core of our business, and the bread and butter of our business is this virtual wholesaling machine that brings in the cash. As a matter of fact, we just completed a deal yesterday, which was a double closing where we bought it for 550 and sold it for 675 in
Oh, nice.
Irvington, New Jersey. Right. So and I can get into like how that business works and things like that if we have time for that. But anyway, that's one of our businesses by way of intro. Another business that we have is our title company. We started that last year. I'm the licensed title producer for the company, and we did a joint venture with a company in Red Bank, Counselor's Title. So we work together hand in hand. We do the intake of the files and prep it. Sandy's on the back end. She's a 20-year veteran in the title industry, and she actually does the searches and issues the commitments and all that. So we have a title company. We have an education company, which back 3 4 5 years ago we used to do in-person events, and those were $10,000 mentorship programs where we did
Yeah.
weekend boot camps. That is now all virtual and online, so if people want to take courses, it's like a fraction of the cost. And so that's our education company. We also have a roofing company, which just got started in January. It's interesting because the way that we work, we partnered with our roofer, and the way that it works is that we do full on roof replacements only. We don't do roof repairs, and we go through your insurance.
Hmm.
So you essentially get a free roof minus the cost of the deductible that you pay, because New Jersey, as of late, has been hit by so many storms that if you look at your insurance policy, if there's wind, hail, or weather related damage, you can go through your insurance. Obviously they're going to send a third party independent insurance appraiser that's going to come in and look at that, and then if we can get you the full amount, we're going to replace your roof.
Yeah,
um,
I had that done in my previous house. It got
oh,
my
through
entire.
an insurance company. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
right here, yeah, this roof here, a
yeah,
different company did it before we got into this business. I'm like,
yeah,
we've actually done this for our rental properties, why don't we
yeah,
actually do this as a business? So
yeah,
that's how the website is Roof King NJ. Roof King NJ is the company.
yeah.
So
Leave all your links in the comments. That way people can access them.
okay,
But yeah,
yeah,
at a
will
later
do.
point. All right.
So um I'll
But
start
yeah, so
dropping it
you've
there.
got the roofing company, the title
Yep,
company, and
yep. And then
then
our last company is
education. Yeah,
yep. The last company is
Dispo King,
Dispo Beast, which
Dispo Beast. Yeah,
what we do with that is wholesalers that are like newer in the business that need help selling their property. We have over 60,000 cash buyers on our list, and a lot of real estate agents that are able to move properties. And so basically, we do a joint venture with them on those. So let me just put those in real fast.
great, great. I mean,
Yeah. So that's
one of the reasons why I really wanted to start something like this, is sometimes, and I've seen this. I've seen a lot of Muslims, it coming from a point of view where they're like, hey, my faith is stopping me from earning a living, or my faith is stopping me, or the restrictions of not getting into interest and whatnot is stopping me from expanding my career, whatever the case.
yeah,
And I'm sort of on a mission to prove them that no, that's not right. If yeah, if you're looking for shortcuts and easy money and whatnot, yeah, there's a lot of restrictions within our deen when it comes to like gambling, taking stuff like that and whatnot. But for the most part, hey, if you're
you
gonna put
know,
your head down,
I think it could be anything further than truth. Like, where in society and on the socioeconomic ladder was Sayyidina Abu Bakr?
yeah, all the way
Where
on the
on the
top.
socioeconomic ladder was Uthman, right?
Yeah,
And Sayyidah Khadija, right?
yeah,
Well, where were they? And the reason that they were able to give so much was because they were people of means, and they were, they were all business people essentially, right?
yeah,
They didn't work for anybody else or report to anybody. They were the boss. Um, so that's our tradition. Now, of course, you have Abu Dhar al Ghifari, who was more like, a stoic. He was more, he would challenge Muawiyah
yeah,
on his wealth and riches, and he was more about, living super below your means. So you have both sides of it, but it's all halal as long as you earn it in a halal
yeah,
way, and you're encouraged to, because how else would you build? The government, unlike overseas, doesn't fund the building of institutions here. So how are you going to donate to your masjid? How are you going to donate to the Islamic
exactly.
schools and all of these things and the endowments that exist now, and
Yeah,
all the amazing causes and organizations? If you're not, if you all you're doing is just taking care of yourself and your immediate needs, and that's all you need, right? That's not how the Sahaba lived out their lives.
yeah. In fact, one of the courses that I started partnering up with for MSAs, we've presented this in Rowan MSA, sorry, not in Rowan, but in Temple MSA, and also in collaboration with UPenn. But it's like, a 1 day workshop just on like money and mindset.
Yeah,
Um, it's the Muslim money
excellent.
mindset,
Yeah,
and it's exactly like that because the society we live in, we're not working just for ourselves, like you mentioned. We're working
mhm,
for a bigger cause. That
right.
money that we're getting needs to, a portion of it needs to be funneled towards, keeping this ummah alive and passing it on to the next generation.
Right.
But listen, with that being said, I want to get into our next question, which is, how are you balancing all this during Ramadan, right? And on top of that, I know we're in our own little group where we like to go work out. Kind of break down your schedule for me during Ramadan. How does that look like, or what does that look like?
So in the past, what I used to do was, I think the biggest challenge in Ramadan is sleep.
Yeah.
It's not the food and the water, because we've been fasting our whole lives,
Mm.
and by day, the first 2-3 days are tough, especially if you didn't fast in Shaban to get ready for Ramadan. You didn't, get those warm ups in, but
Yeah.
if you are going straight into Ramadan, by day 4 you're fine, right?
Sure.
You're not feeling the hunger as much, your stomach's not grumbling as much, your body is adapted, and the body has this ability to adapt to these type of environments very quickly. So your body's adapted. The only thing it hasn't adapted to is the lack of sleep, because
Mm.
once iftar hits, everything is a domino after that, right? You have to leave the house at a certain time to make isha at a certain time, to pray tarawih, and then get to bed at a certain time so that you can get up for tahajjud at a certain time, and then get to fajr and all of that. So clearly, the one thing that I focus on is my sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's not so much the food and drink, because I literally eat the same thing every morning, right? It's the
Mm.
same Kodiak pancake, it's the same Quest protein bar, right? All of these things. And so I'll tell you a couple of things that have helped me, and I'm like very happy about my schedule, and
Yeah.
kind of like ecstatic and looking forward to my schedule every single day. So what I do is, let's start, in the way that the Islamic calendar starts is with Maghrib time, right? The day
Yeah.
starts at that time. Iftar happens. Um, we sit down like clockwork. Now every family is different. Some families like to just do the date and water and go right into Maghrib. We mostly are like, we're starving at that time, so we eat and then we do Maghrib, and then we always watch Yaqeen Institute's series that's running right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then one other video with
Is that the 30 for 30?
the 30, not the 30 for 30. We do that. My wife always has that on during suhoor.
Okay.
This is the one for Judgment Day. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
in the past they did angels, and
Yeah.
then there was another one in between, but this year it's on Judgment Day, right? So we watch
Mm.
that. All the kids are with us, and then we'll go to Isha, right? Now the focus is not Tarawih. The focus is Isha. Like, we have to catch Isha. So you have to have your priorities in order. We were just talking about this yesterday at an iftar, was that, a lot of people just try to get there for Tarawih. It's like when somebody works for you and you've given them like some major projects that need to get done to move the needle, right? And you get to the office and they're like, "Oh, I didn't do any of the projects, but I organized the file cabinet, and I got a chance to clean the bathroom, and,
Yeah.
and did all of these like ancillary secondary things that are nice to have, but you didn't do the project, man." Right? Isha is important and Fajr is important. So let's start there. That's the fard, right? And so making it to there on time. Now, if it's a school night, um, we will do 4 rakah of Tarawih. And I personally, everybody's different. COVID Ramadan for me was probably one of the best Ramadans of my life. And
Mm.
it's because of there's this different level of khushu, and this is personal to everybody. Some people get more
Yeah.
khushu in Jama'ah. For me, like, if I'm by myself and I put one of those Maghribi thobes on and I
Yeah.
put the hood on like this, and it's just like blinders on, I get like amazing concentration with that, right? And
Mm.
just turn off the as a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see like behind me. Uh we have like a little musalla set up. So anyway, we come back and we do the remainder of Tarawih at home. At this point, it's like 10 p.m. And this is what I like about the Route 1 Masjid over here, is that they start Isha on time, not like, so early on it was like 8:35, and now it's probably, I think it started at like 8:40 something. Now it's at like
Oh, wow, that's
8:50.
early.
But they would start when it came in, like on
Oh,
time.
I see. Got
So
it.
the adhan happened then, and then few minutes to pray sunnah, and then the adhan, the iqama would start, right? Whereas everywhere else they just started at 9 p.m. or 9:15 or 9:30. these guys are starting on time. So that allowed us to get home by 9:30 and try to be in bed by like 10, lights out by like 10:15. Why?
Mm.
Because again, like for me, sleep is like my it's my battery, right? If I
Yeah.
don't charge it enough, it's gonna die and I'm useless to the world.
Yep.
So to myself, to my family, whoever, to my business, to the people that work with me, I'm useless. So I need to get that sleep. So I get 6 hours then when I'm able to wake up at 4:30, get 8 rakah of the hajjud in and witr, and then onto suhoor, which alhamdulillah, my wife already has it ready when I get down there. So it's
Yeah.
already out and done. When I started Ramadan, it was like a lot more though. It was like scrambled eggs,
Yeah.
bread
Yeah. Yeah.
with grass-fed
Whole
butter on
banquet.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've lessened it significantly because in between I got like this stomach thing. So I'm like, no, no, just less if less
Yeah.
suhoor. From after Fajr, we do a community recitation on Zoom for
Mm.
Surah Yasin. So I'm doing that as I'm driving to Lifetime from
Mm.
ISCJ to Lifetime. It's a 7-minute drive, and I pull into the parking lot, and right around then I'm like wrapping up with that. Right, so the other brothers are reciting, or I'm reciting, and then we finish, and then I go right into my workout. The reason that this works well, in the past, what I did was I did my workout after Tarawih,
Mm.
and then I would go to the
Yeah,
gym
that's
at
crazy.
night.
Yeah.
But then you're like, your body's all like ramped up and you're hot. And, even if you take a cold shower, it takes a while to just kind of like, you know, uh, calm down and actually get to sleep. So this is working way, way better. Like I highly recommend this sort of a lifestyle, right? It's staying up after, after Fajr, not going to sleep
Yeah.
after Fajr. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made a dua, Allahumma barik lana fi bukuriha, right?
Yeah.
Oh Allah, put barakah, blessings in our mornings. Alhamdulillah.
Mm.
So do my workout. And if I can get, mix in cardio there too, because what I try to do is instead of waiting in between sets, I'll just jump on the treadmill and get the cardio
Yeah.
going at that time. And just be out of there in like an hour, hour and 15 minutes. And then that's done. As I'm driving home, I start to get tired, right? So what I do is we log in. We have a morning huddle every morning on the, myself, my brother, and all of our teammates, and that's at 8:30 Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And in between, we don't have that call. We just go right through. Um, and I give myself till 11 o'clock to just work, like focused work. Um, and most of our stuff is alhamdulillah delegated, right? So I'm mostly focusing on like business development and how to like grow it and how to move,
Mm.
take revenues from X to the next level up, whereas the team members are actually carrying out the daily operational activities.
Sure.
And if there's a book that I can recommend, it should be foundational for everybody's business library, is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Teaches you how to just move out of the technician phase to being a
Is
manager
there
and entrepreneur.
is there a difference between E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited, or is it
So I've only read E-Myth Revisited. I
okay?
read the second version of it, so I don't know what he had in the first version, but
Okay.
luckily I got the updated one. So it's kind of like when you get your laptop with Windows 11, if you
Yeah.
don't have Apple, um, you don't care what 9 and 10 did, but you're good with 11. But that was like
Yeah.
the main thing that I got out of it is number one, build your business that if you were going to sell it in 5 years, you could. So what does that mean? It means that your business has to be able to function without you. And
Mm.
number two, how do you do that? Is by having SOPs and manuals and checklists for everything so that if one person is sick, the show still goes on. You can put the next person in and it keeps going. And the premise behind it is like McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to run the French fry machine. If they watch the 10-minute training video, anybody they could insert any teenager in there to run that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the email. Anyway, so I'll do that focus work till about 11, and then 11 to like 12:30, maybe even 1. Like I'll take a 1.5 hour, 2 hour nap, right? Now I
Mm.
know it's a little bit like counter to the sunnah because the Prophet ﷺ would sleep after dhuhr, not before.
Yeah.
And in between, one like really small but very major habit that I would tell people to pick up is salat ad-duha. right?
Mm,
It's an extra 2 rakahs that's very easy to add into your lifestyle, especially, if you use your phone as like a trigger and put an alarm on, and you know that after your morning activity, you have a little bit of downtime at, let's say, 10:30 a.m., 2 rakah, Surah Kafrun in the first rakah and Ikhlas in the second. And there's so many benefits to it. We can go into it a little bit later. One of them being is that you are recognized as somebody that is oft repentant by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that's something that people can add in, especially if they want to take on habits that they can do now and carry outside of Ramadan.
mm, yeah.
It's an easy one that they could do. So once that nap happens, then I'm now recharged. I'm at like 85% in my battery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can now go the rest of the day doing whatever I need to do, in work and business and so on. So I don't schedule any calls. I don't schedule any meetings in that time because I know I'm going to get sleepy and I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to bring
Yep.
my best. So I just, kind of uh, shut it off at that point. And
Yeah.
then that's how it goes. And I think you have to break up Ramadan with the first 20 and the last 10. And because we run our own companies, we're blessed in the fact that we can make our own schedules. And we let our non Muslim team members know as well that, look, it's Ramadan. So our schedule is going to be a little bit wacky. You might see me come into the office at like 12 noon. And here's
Yeah.
why. And we realized that, once the 21st night comes, that there's going to be another change in our schedule because now we're going to be
Yeah.
up the whole night. I'm not going to get that 6 hours anymore. Now it's going to
Exactly.
be pretty much up the entire night. So, Fajr to Dhuhr, I'm going to be sleeping at this
Mhm.
point, or
Yeah.
something between.
So, I mean, to your point, yeah, sleeping. I mean, sleep is really the big factor for me as well. And I think as I've gotten older, I'm beginning to realize that more and more. Like, hey, if
Yeah,
even if I get,
100%.
less than an hour of sleep than I usually do, I'm like completely out of whack. And one thing that I've been conscious about this Ramadan is kind of reducing my caffeine intake, because as much as I love my coffee and caffeine, I'm like I can't function without it, and I'm like I need to somehow get rid of it. So I've been kind of on and off trying to reduce my consumption of caffeine as much as possible, and it's been working out well in the sense where throughout the day, if I feel drowsy and sleepy, normally I just go for a shot of caffeine. Now I'm just laying down, and whether it's on my office floor, I'll just lay down for 10 minutes, and I'll get back up, and I'll feel much more better.
Yeah.
But I think just rewiring those circuits and not being so caffeine dependent.
Yeah,
But
so in the past, I did that. I just completely withdrew from caffeine
mm,
altogether, or maybe have like a half cup of coffee. And of course, those headaches come on, and
yeah,
you can't operate with those type of headaches, or at least the severity that I would get it. So this Ramadan, I did something different. I decided not to abandon caffeine at all. Actually,
yeah,
I actually upped the caffeine.
oh wow,
So I use this product called Celsius.
mm.
It's a drink you could get at Costco. You could get it even
I've
on
seen it before. Yeah,
Amazon.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can even get it at Amazon. It has 200 milligrams of
Mm,
caffeine. The standard cup of coffee has 85 milligrams. So this is about 2.5 cups of coffee, basically. But it's mostly out of my system by my 11 a.m. nap,
mm.
right? So this caffeine is what helps me get through my post Fajr workout,
Okay,
actually.
got it.
Fed for that workout, and I'm caffeinated for that workout. And then
Yeah.
I'm still able to, catch a nap at like 11 o'clock and
Mm.
then recharge. So that's been working out really well. I don't anticipate changing it for the rest of this Ramadan or maybe in the future
Yeah.
as well. So that's like, it has to be there for suhoor for me.
For the first week of Ramadan, so I do CrossFit. So I went at my usual time, 10 a.m., and I was able to push through it, but the rest of the day, my throat was just so parched. I was like, just I could hardly speak.
Yeah.
I'm like dying of thirst. So what I started doing this week was now I just go at like 5:30. I'm out by 6:30, and come back home. freshen up, and that's good. But
Yeah,
CrossFit is kind of demanding, so I only
very
go twice or three times a week. The rest of the days, I'm just at
recovery.
home, recovery. But what I like to do is, I'm trying to get to a point where I can do 50 push-ups straight. So right now I'm at a point where I can manage like 35 to 40. So that's what I'm just doing throughout the days I don't go to work out. Is I'll try to do 50 push-ups as quick as possible, then 50 air squats as quick as possible, and 25 pull-ups as quick as possible.
Nice.
So in between that, I can't do 25 straight pull-ups. Maybe I'll get to like 15 or 17, and then a 10-second rest. So I'm still getting like 3 or 4 sets of failure. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not really to build any muscle, but it's more so just keep
But at
myself
least
active.
maintenance, because what happens is if you leave everything all together,
Yeah,
your body composition changes. You might be the same
yeah,
weight. You might weigh the same in the beginning of Ramadan and the end of Ramadan, but your body looks significantly different, right? Like
exactly. Yeah,
you put on fat and your muscle has like diminished. Uh, Even though you might step on the scale and it says 155 day one and 155 day 30. But your body composition, and that's a really good way to do it. A lot of people use it as like a deload instead of a deload week. They use it as a deload
mhm,
month, so they'll do
yeah,
70% of their normal weight. I've been able to keep it about the same weight that I have out of Ramadan, and it's only because of this sort of schedule
yeah,
where I am caffeinated, I'm fed, and so I can go right into that workout after Fajr. You got to wait like 30, 45 minutes for like the food to settle in. So between Fajr,
sure.
driving to the gym, and all that, that does happen. Um, and then you know what? There's another drink that I highly recommend. Sheikh Joe Bradford had put up,
Is
you know,
it in that little container?
yeah, it's like the powder. It's called
CTC or something like that.
yeah, it's called IV Solution is the
Yeah,
name
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
company. You get it at
Yep.
Costco as well, and it shows like
Yeah,
that thing is equal to like three. It's basically an electrolyte drink,
yeah.
right?
It's got like
So
50 calories. Yeah,
yeah, like 45 calories,
yeah, yeah,
and it yeah, we're like macros people, so like
yeah.
we track all of this. Um, And what the thing about it was that, when you drink a lot of water, previous Ramadans, I would take a 32 ouncer and just drink the whole
Mm,
thing. Like, my wife's like, "Are you a camel? Like, what's going on
yeah,
with you?" And just like gulp, 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 drink the whole thing. And the issue with that is that you end up, it just goes through you. You urinate that out, so you could still get dehydrated. With this, because of the electrolytes, you don't get dehydrated. And so I've now my wife's on it too. She was on it since day one too. And she's like, I noticed a marked significant difference. Like I
mhm,
didn't get thirsty throughout the day. So even after the workout, I'm not thirsty at all.
yeah,
And it's because of these two things, like the Celsius drink and the IV solution has been like a cheat code
yeah.
completely,
I
so
started. I tried the caffeine pills the first week, and
yeah.
that was great. Like it kept me on a consistent level of energy all throughout.
Oh,
But
okay.
Shamel, what I'm gonna do is I want to wrap this up because we're at the 48-minute mark over here. I think a lot of the information a lot of the things that you've spoken about, there's enough advice that people can get out of it. Whether it's real estate agents or agent or anyone that wants to get into entrepreneurship and business. I think there's a lot of gems that you've alluded to. So we're gonna skip that question. We're going to jump into the last question over here is what are your top 3 favorite business books? I know you mentioned the E-Myth Revisited. You kind of, indicated towards the purple book, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What's one more that you want to recommend?
Um, it's called the Slight Edge. And the Slight Edge is all they just the author, I think his name is Jeff Olson, if I remember correctly. He gives all these examples of just doing little things, small things that you add on to. A lot of people run into
Is
Ramadan and
that
they're
like
like,
the compound effect
compound
by
effect, yeah. So I
okay.
think Darren Hardy essentially copied him because
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
when I read the compound effect, I'm like, there's no new concepts in here at all. And I
Yeah.
had read Slight Edge many, many years ago. Um, but that's what it's about, is doing small things, and those small things are easy to do and they're easy not to do. And he says
Hmm.
that over and over again in his book, right? Like, for example, Salatul Duha, as I mentioned, it's easy to do and it's easy not to do, right? And but the benefits of it are like outstanding. They're amazing, right? To be written
Exactly.
amongst those type of people that do it. And that's everything throughout, all the decisions and that's what we do. We make micro decisions every single day, and we are the cumulative end product of all those micro decisions that we make, and that's where we are in
100%.
life today,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that would be the third book that I would recommend, The Slight Edge.
Awesome. Well, man, I really want to continue this. I've got a few things that I need to go to. I'm actually heading out to New York tonight, so
Okay.
got to go there before rush hour hits.
Okay.
But
Safe
inshallah,
drive.
I'd love to have you over again, and kind of talk and unpack more about the different businesses, and maybe even if someone wanted to get into what you're doing,
Mhm.
how do they start? And especially, if I'm being selfish, that is something that's in my mind. I'm like, hey, I want to get into virtual wholesaling, but where do I start? Right. So
Yeah.
that's
Look,
that's for a different time.
sure. Yeah, I would say YouTube. Lock yourself in a room. We have courses and things like that. I'm not gonna shamelessly push that on anybody.
Yeah.
Just get
No,
on YouTube.
I've actually purchased some of your courses. And the thing is, I purchased them, I started, and I didn't finish because I'm like, all right, this is not what I want to get caught up right now,
Yep.
because
Yeah, you have to know your
90%.
goals,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's called
and what you're doing.
prioritization. Yep.
Yeah, just break your year up: Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4,
Exactly.
and then just say, okay, I have this on deck for Q3, Q4. But yeah, get on YouTube, lock yourself up for a weekend. You can learn anything.
Inshallah. All right, man.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much.
No,
And
yeah.
we will be in touch.
Okay, inshallah. All right.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to catch us again next week. And, if this really works out well, maybe we'll even continue it after Ramadan, but let's see. All right, then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum